before we start with this market recap, this is pretty much something that you guys can expect every single day in the 2.0 update, right? So in the 2.0 update, right, the main goal that I have with this new upgrade is pretty much to be more connected with every single members that we have, right? Either the free channel and the VIP channel, and as well bring as much value into this community, right? So we're obviously going to have the course, we have the trading systems, we have the PDF, the ebooks, we have these breakdowns, we have these live calls, right? So pretty much bring more value so that you guys 100% understand exactly what are we doing, right? What exactly trades are we taking for? Why are we taking these type of trades? So again, you guys have the value, you guys have the knowledge of every single trade that we are taking, right? So again, you guys, before in the 1.0, I pretty much did not do this as much, but this is something that I do want to bring up because a lot of you guys have been asking, hey, why are you taking these type of setups? How do you guys look for these type of areas of interest, etc., right? So it's pretty much what we're going to be throwing out. So let's go over the trades that we took this morning. Today I did end up closing now in profit at $700, right? With the two losses, even with the two losses that we took, right? I'm going to explain to you guys exactly what risk management system that I use to be able to stay profitable throughout the day after losing two trades and just winning one, right? So I'm going to explain all of you guys that at the end of the video. But let's do this market recap very quick. Let's go over first the gold trade that we took last night during the London session, which played out amazing. As you guys can see, it played out for a 103.6 risk to reward. Beautiful trade. We had the second opportunity. This one over here was actually shared with you guys in the live call, which as you guys can see played out amazing, right? Pretty much exactly what we were expecting. But price action never activate our trade and price just took off, right? So which is annoying because we had the setup, but obviously we had to follow our plan. We have to wait for price action to come into our areas of interest so we can activate our limits so that we can enter those buy positions, right? But it's cool. But anyways, let's do a very quick breakdown, a very quick recap of this trade. Let me explain to you guys. I have the notes here explaining why did I pretty much enter these trades, right? So obviously this is long. We have daily H4, H1 bullish market, right? So we go into a higher time frame. Let's go into a daily time frame. What can we clearly see? We are clearly in a bullish market, simply creating higher highs and higher lows. 4-hour time frame, same story. 1-hour time frame, same exact story, right? Now, this is something that we went over in the live call as well. I did not delete this, right, for purpose, but this is something that we went over in the live call. If we take a look at last week market, right, we can pretty much see that last week market, right, we were very bearish heading towards the downside, right, breaking lower lows, lower high legs, right, pretty much previous lows, previous support zones, price action just tanking all the way till the downside, right? Now, something that I as well explained to you guys was, the potential switch of structure, right? And this is very important. This is something that I do cover in the course, right? Which is understanding exactly when market is shifting the structure from bullish to bearish or from bearish to bullish, right? Which I do see that a lot of traders do fail to really understand this, right? They pretty much look for buys, but they're pretty much trading against the trend, right? So it's something that is very important for you guys to really understand. So if we take a look at gold, right, even though we had this entire bearish move towards the downside, right, breaking all of these previous higher highs and higher lows, if we continue taking a look at the daily time frame, right, let me just clear this out. If you guys take a look at the daily time frame, right, you guys can clearly see there's no signal or proper confirmation that, hey, we are shifting structure from bullish to bearish, right? The only way that this over here could have been a potential and as well shift to structure would simply be if price action, again, because we have this high, we have these lows, we have this lower high, we have this lower low. If price action would have come back into these zones over here, right, around the 3300 zone, price action would have rejected and maintained itself under, this over here would have been a good example of, hey, we are shifting the structures. Let me give you guys an example with drawing. So check this out. We have these highs, lows, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Let's say that we create the first lower high legs on the daily time frame, right? We had a bearish action towards these entire legs over here, right? And then we had this minor pullback that formed this lower high, right? Now check this out. Obviously, these highs over here are lower than the previous one, so that it is a potential of a switch of structure. Now, what really explained to you guys, hey, what when we are really switching structure is whenever price action breaks under the previous lows. That will give you guys a better confirmation, right? Same exact story if we're looking for buying position. If it breaks above the previous high, that will give a better confirmation, explaining to you guys, hey, we are ready to start shifting the structure, right? So we did create the lower high legs, right, which is right over here. Same exact story. Obviously, this is from the daily time frame. Give me 1 second. Let me turn this off. My bad. So if you guys take a look at this structure right over here, right, we have this higher high, we have this low, then we have a lower high. we start having the bearish structure towards the downside, right? That's exactly what price action did in the next leg. We had a pullback, we had a rejection, let's say from any zones over here from a lower time frame. Price action perfectly respected, and again, we started having the shift towards the downside. Yes, we did break these lows, right? Now this is the potential. It's still not 100% confirmed. On the lower time frame, yes, there is bearish action, but keep this in mind. Always the higher the time frame is going to be, right? The higher the time frame is, the stronger the trend is always going to be, right? So now we broke under these previous low legs over here, forming a new lower low, right? These lows over here are lower than the previous one. Now, obviously, the idea is to wait for price action to pull back, retest the zone, and if it gives us the bearish confirmation showing us that there's a lot of more bearish opportunity in the zones over here, then what we need to wait for is simply the break under those lows and obviously those minor pullbacks so that we can enter the short position, right? Now, exactly how I have it drawn over here, we have these demand zone over here, where most likely price action, every time that it taps into a demand zone, we're seeing some bullish reaction, right? Another thing that I went over today is that we do not immediately buy whenever price action either comes to a supply zone or to a demand zones, right? Those are potential because again, we are coming from a minor downtrend, right? That is something to keep in mind. We're coming from a minor downtrend. So what are the odds, right, that price action does have the reaction towards the upside and then continues to trend towards the downside? Obviously, it is always going to be a 50-50% for both sides, right? The market moves. We do not control the market. We pretty much don't even tell the market, hey, I want you to do this. No, pretty much the market does other things. So that's exactly what we need to react and adapt and pretty much react with the market, right? Just build a solid, what can be a good word to describe that? I would say like a solid relationship with any type of market that you guys, pretty much are trading and really understanding exactly how it moves, right? So that you guys are able to find the right exact areas of interest where price action has high probabilities of reacting from so that you guys can obviously take a trade from, right? So going back into this example, we came back into this demand zone. We have lows, we have a higher low here, we have a higher high, we have a higher low, we have a lower high, we have a low. Notice how these lows over here never got broken under, right? If we take a look at this in the actual chart, we have lows over here. Notice how those lows over here never got broken under. So if we go down into a lower time frame, what do we have over here? We have a strong demand zone. This is literally a very nice demand zone over here, which is another way to say a support, where buyers recently stepped into this market over here, pushing the market even higher. Price action has a retracement back into this demand zone. What exactly price action does? We have the same exact reaction. We have the tap, we have the bullish reaction towards here. Now check this out. We go down into a lower time frame to the 1 hour time frame. This is exactly where we have the potential switch of the structure. We have lows, lower highs, lower low. Tap into the demand zone. We have bullish reaction towards the upside. We have a very strong push towards the upside, creating a new high. We come back, form a higher low. If we grab the Fibonacci level from these lows over here to these highs over here, notice how we perfectly tap into the golden zone, the retracement, right? The golden zone is going to be between the 0.5 to the 0.618. We have a perfect tap to the golden zone. If you guys pretty much have used the trend line from this point to this point over here, you can see how this trend line as well was respected. So what is this form over here? This is a low. We have a high, and now we have a higher low. Perfect. From there on, we already understand that, hey, market is now having the potential of switching the structure. All we have to wait for is obviously for bullish volume to kick in, wait for the next higher low legs with opportunity, and then we enter the market. That is exactly the trade that we took yesterday that played out for over 600 pips, which was a 1 of 5 risk to reward. We enter at 33.57 and we end up closing out our position right over here at 33. I personally closed it out right over here at 33.15, which if you guys grab the rules from here, 33.57. Right over here, you guys can clearly see it played out for almost 600 pips, which is obviously insane. Beautiful trade over here as well. This was a 1 of 5 risk to reward. Now going into last night's trade, what did we simply do? If you guys notice a trend, what are we doing? We're pretty much pushing the market towards the upside. The market continues flying. It just continues creating higher highs and higher low legs, right? We broke above these lows over here, right? So if we go back into the 4 hour time frame or to a daily time frame, remember what I was explaining to you guys. The way that price action has, the opportunity of actually going into a very aggressive bearish market, we need to see something like this. We need to see the pullback, the retest of those broken lows, and then price action can start heading towards the downside. Notice what price action did over here. Never got that respected, right? Price action just simply broke above. right? This right here is a very strong bullish candle, especially with this bullish pattern over here. Broke above and maintained itself above. Cool. Now let's go back into the 1 hour time frame. We had zones over here that I actually had marked up that I was interested in selling the market but never got the confirmations. The zone was around 33.22, I believe it was somewhere over here, but notice how price action just simply had broken above, came back, respected the zone, and just kept pushing higher, right? So the sells over here was invalid. Now, taking a look at the buy position that we took yesterday, right? First thing first that we noticed, obviously every single trend is bullish. Every single time frame is bullish. What's the next thing that we notice? We notice a very strong bullish candle breaking above all of these highs over here. What do we have over here? We have resistance. We have resistance, resistance, and resistance. Price action have broken above the areas of resistance, right? So again, this is why I tell you guys that you can never sell whenever price action comes directly into a resistance, right? Because first of all, we need to see reaction from these zones. We need to see a rejection. Lower time frame, we need to see a break on the structure, a pullback, confirmations, and then we get our entry to enter the sell, right? All of this is covered in the course, right? And this is why I'm very excited about this 2.0, because pretty much the way that I trade, everything is covered there, so you guys can actually understand, you guys can actually learn, and probably even apply it to your own proper strategy, right? So going back into the recap, we broke above this structure right over here. What do we get next? We get a pullback towards to retest all of these previous broken highs, right? So again, if we're looking for buy position, we're simply looking for price action to break above highs, give us a pullback, maintain itself above, so that we can then enter a buying position, right? Simple. That's everything that we are looking for. That is exactly what price action did. We had a very strong bullish break towards the upside, breaking above all of these highs, or resistance, right? Pull back, retested the zone, rejects it multiple times. What do we have here? We have the VWAP that also rejected. We notice the VWAP. You guys can clearly see how the VWAP is pretty much trading under the market candles, right? So whenever the VWAP is pretty much under the candles, we're seeing there's a lot of bullish volume. Whenever we see the VWAP that is trading above the candles, we are seeing that there's a lot of bearish volume, right? So it's very simple. We're going down into a lower time frame, right? This happened during the pre-Asian session. The pre-Asian session, we formed a demand zone. As soon as we broke above, we came back, we formed a demand zone, right? Minor support. Price action has an immediate push towards the upside. We come back, we retest this demand zone, right? So we go back into a higher time frame. This is the same exact play that happened right over here. Demand, push, back into demand, push the market. Going back into the lower time frame. Let's go back into the setup. Price action did the same exact story, right? What it did over here in the 1 minute time frame during the pre-Asian session. We have a demand zone, push the market. Price action comes back. We swept all of these previous lows. We retested previous high, previous resistance zones. What do we see next? We see a bullish move towards the upside, breaking above all of these structures over here. Now, as soon as price action had a reaction towards these levels over here, this is where I was very interested in buying the market. Now, obviously, we needed to wait for our confirmations before we even enter the buys. What do we have next? What is our confirmation? Check this out. We have the bullish push towards the upside. We have the pullback. We are retesting this entire zone, right? I believe if we grab the Fibonacci level from this one over here to this highs over here, you guys can clearly see how we do retest the golden zone as well. So we have tapped the reaction for resistance, rejection from demand. We have a break of structure, breaking all of these previous lower highs, forming a new high, pulling back, forming a higher low at the golden zone, which is the 0.618. We have rejection. We're seeing that price action is, what is that word? Consistently, rejecting towards these zones over here. We're having rejection. We have the VWAP, which continues to hold under all of these candles over here. Now, what pattern do we see here? We go into the 5 minute time frame. This is exactly where I did manage to enter my position. What do we see these patterns over here? We see that price action is having an accumulation, right? Which is a range. Price action is not breaking above or not breaking under, just simply creating highs, lows, high, lows. We're simply in a range, right? Now, another thing to point out over here, this is a very, very important. This is something that's what I'm going to cover in the course. This is actually the new video that's going to get uploaded later on in this month. But this is something that you guys really need to pay attention, because a lot of people do happen to, fall into this trap and then they get stopped out, right? I'm not going to lie. This is sometimes I do personally get stopped over here if I do not, point it out. So this is over here that we are pretty much having an accumulation, right? Accumulation can happen both sides, an upside or a downside, right? So let's say exactly the same exact move that happened over here. We had a push towards the upside. We had a push towards the downside. We're having bearish structure breaking all of these previous legs over here. We have bearish structure. We have now prices ranging. A lot of people, most likely a lot of traders, would probably simply wait for the break and retest under these zones over here to then get a break and retest to sell the market. This is where almost 50% of the time, right? I will say 50% of the time because again, trading is all a game of probability. It's always going to be 50%. Again, we do not control the market. The market is basically, the market is what's controlling us, right? We simply just show up every single day with our technical skills and just pretty much analyze the market and trade with our plan, right? Again, the most important thing in trading is having confidence and not having the hesitations, right? So most likely, just because we had this bearish move towards the downside, a lot of traders probably most over here, they get caught in this manipulation. It's a false breakout. A lot of trader probably will be entering a sell position over here just because, hey, we broke under this range over here. We have this bearish structure right over here. No, but this is why I tell you guys, it's very important to follow the rules from a higher time frame, right? Now check this out. We break under, we get the pullback. We do see that price action does remain itself under, then we see the sell. If I personally was going to be looking for a sell position, I simply needed to see price action break strongly under these areas of resistance, right? If you guys go into a higher time frame, you guys can clearly see that we have all of this resistance. Why are we going to be looking for a buying or selling position above an area of resistance, right? Does not make any sense, right? We're above an area of resistance. We most likely looking for price action to reject, then go into a buying position. If we were looking for sell position, it will be opposite. We need to be under the areas of resistance. Resistance are always going to be on highs, right? So if we're looking for sells, we need to be under. So if I was looking for sell yesterday, this is most likely the same exact setup that I would have looked for, right? Now, since we had this entire here, we go back into a 5-minute time frame. We have the accumulation right over here. We have the manipulation. This is a false breakout. We once again liquidity swept all of these previous lows. We're still remaining itself above those highs. What do we have next? We have a very strong bullish candle reaction towards the upside. This is exactly where we did manage to enter our trade. So again, we have the accumulation, which pretty much manipulated everyone. We liquidity swept a demand zone. And again, we're above an area of resistance. And then we had a demand zone that was around these zones over here. We liquidity swept all this over here. We rejected all this right over here, right? Look at this, swept, and we have a swept. We go into a higher time frame. We have all of these previous highs right over here, right? Oh, let me see if I go back. You have all of these highs over here, right? Now check this out. We have that manipulation right here, and then we start having the bullish reaction towards the upside. The VWAP, again, is trading above these candles. This over here was our entry confirmation. We took the buy position. We target back above these highs over here. My take profit was at 34,000. Notice how price action perfectly smacked our take profit. Simple setup. This is literally what I look for every single time. Now, in today's market, right, in today's live call, we went over the trade. We went over this setup right over here. We called out, hey, now that we have broken above these highs, we have resistance, right? We go back into a 1 hour time frame. What do we have? Well, let's go into a 30-minute time frame. It looks better here. If you guys look at a 30-minute time frame, what do we have over here? We have also previous highs over here, which price action has broken above. Again, the trend is bullish. We are creating higher highs and higher lows. The trend is always going to be the friend, so we're looking for buying position, right? Now, we obviously saw the reaction. This is exactly what I told you guys. Hey, we have the reaction. We have the bullish tab. Once again, we come over here. We liquidity swipe all of these previous highs over here. Once again, we start having the bullish reaction towards the upside. As soon as we got this candle closure right over here, which if you go into a 15-minute time frame, this is a very nice bullish engulfing candle closure. I was waiting for price action, hopefully to obviously whip us into this entry over here so that we're able to take these buys. But price action, unfortunately, failed to tap into our zone and then just pretty much flew towards the upside, which sucks because we had this entire setup planned. Now, the third opportunity that we did have was to break and retest above these minor highs right over here, but this over here happened way too quick, right? Again, we have a pretty much a little range over here, and then we have the push towards the upside. There was never a proper retest over here, so there was never a good confirmation for us to be entering a buy position, right? Now, obviously, this entire move just happened towards the upside, but overall, this was a beautiful trade, right? So this over here played out for a 103.6 risk to reward. Yesterday, trade played out for a 1 of 5 risk to reward. The 1 of 5 risk to reward, it was called out for free for you guys in the free Telegram, right? So you guys were obviously able to benefit off that trade. Now, going over into the New York session trade that we took this morning was US 30, right? Now, let's go over exactly what pretty much we had marked up. If we go into a lower time frame, let's start off from the 15-minute time frame, right? What do we have over here? If you guys look left, we have a demand zone right over here. We did see the price action tap into the zone. We have a bullish reaction, tap, pullback, reaction, tap towards the upside. Price action does the same exact story this morning. This happened during the 9:30 a.m. candle. We have a tap towards the zone, a tap towards the demand zone over here. We have a bullish reaction towards the upside. Immediately seeing that buyers are very interested in, obviously holding these zones over here to continue pushing the market higher. Let's go into NAS 100. NAS 100 did the same exact story. If we go to NAS 100, we have a demand zone right over here. Demand, immediately pushed towards the upside. Beautiful. The SPX 500 kind of had the same exact move. We have a demand zone. We have a demand zone, price action perfectly rejected, perfectly shot towards the upside, right? Now, we're going to go over, obviously, I did do my back testings and I did do my journal on this trade over here. I am going to admit that this trade over here, I was completely wrong with the analysis, right? This is something that, obviously, because we are a trader, we're always going to make mistakes, right? This is why it's important for you guys to journal your trade, right? If you guys are not really journaling your trade, you guys do not understand exactly the mistakes that you guys are making, right? So, me going back over this trade, the idea of this morning, right, was that if price action can tap into the 4100, this is where I'm looking to take sales position, right? Now, that's why I explained to you guys, if price action would have broken above these highs over here, we're waiting for the break and retest to then go long, right? Now, check this out. What price action does over here? We have a reaction towards these demand zone over here. We see an immediate push towards the upside. That's exactly what price action did. We get a very strong push toward the upside, breaking above the 4100, which was our areas of interest. Going down into a lower time frame, let me delete all of this, it does not look messy. Going into a lower time frame, what do we see? We see this. We see that price action broken above. We see this minor, accumulation. We have the manipulation over here, and then we have the distribution towards the upside. But turns out it was the opposite, right? This is something that should have paid very close attention, right? We had this entire false breakout towards the downside. If I was very interested in selling the market in this case, all I was waiting for was for price action to actually break under these lows over here. Because again, we did reject the 4100. We were trading under the 4100, but there was no bearish confirmation for me to actually enter a sell, right? So in this case over here, the only thing that I was waiting for was for price action to have a very strong bearish candle closure to then obviously have my entry confirmation to then take the sell. But what happens next? We have this very strong distribution towards the upside. Price action has broken above all of these highs over here. We took a buy position right over here at this candle at 4100. I believe it was 4100. Was it 41? Let me double check. Let me just double check. Give me 1 second. 4100, I believe it was. Yeah, so 41,100, that was our entry, which was right over here. This is where I told you guys, hey, I'm taking the buy position right over here. We have the break and retest above these highs. This is exactly where I did manage to take my position. So as we got the pullback towards the zone, we had this reaction. This right here was my entry confirmation, which was this bullish candle. Again, we broke above the 4100. We had this entire bullish structure towards the upside, following from this early New York session play. Tap from the demand zone, break above structure. All of this here had been broken above. We are creating now higher highs and higher lows. This over here was my entry confirmation. Obviously, every game of trading is a game of probability, right? This is why it's very important to manage our risk. I sent you guys risk 0.5% in this trade, right? Now, the reason why I explained to you guys to risk 0.5% in this trade because we were in lunch hour. Lunch hour, the market is very, very volatile, right? So there's going to be times that the market can obviously go with us and can go against us, right? So this is where I explained to you guys, hey, risk 0.5%. But again, if you guys take a look here, notice how price action just failed to, maintain itself above the structure, broke under, took us out of stop loss. We lost 0.5% in this trade. This trade over here, I did lose over $280 or $290, which is fine. Going back into the US 30 trade, the gold trade, which that one may be a good amount of money. Plus from yesterday's trade as well. So this loss over here really did not hurt at all. So what do we have next? Simply once we had that entire bearish move towards the downside, this is where I did manage to look for my second opportunity, which was a pullback towards these key levels right over here. If you guys take a look at the left side, we have some type of reaction towards these zones. So every time the price action had a reaction towards these demand zone over here, we had a bullish reaction, right? That is exactly what I was anticipating, right? That's what, if you grab a Fibonacci and you place it from these lows here to these highs over here, we are retesting the 0.618, the golden zones, right? Which is the areas that we're pretty much looking to look for buy position, right? Obviously not buy position right away, but a reaction towards D zone so that we can obviously enter the buy position. So again, we have the push towards D zone. We do see that price action has a reaction from, right? Going into a lower time frame. What do we have here? We have a tap towards the zone, demand zone. We are seeing some bullish reaction. All I simply waited for was for a break above these highs over here. This was my entry confirmation. We have the break of structure. We have the retest of the demand zone. We are still holding above these previous lows over here. These are now considered as a potential higher low. I got my entry confirmation. Pretty much simply the same thing that I wait for every single time. Got the break, got the retest, got my entry confirmation. What was my entry confirmation at this point? This candle closure. This is where I sent you guys the buy stop. This is where I tell you guys, hey, we're gonna enter a buy stop right over here at 49.50. We were slightly in profit, but then turns out price action breaks under and then ends up taking it out a stop loss, right? So in this trade over here, I personally lost over $180, risking 0.5%. I'm explaining to you guys why. Now, we entered this trade over here. I end up closing out half of my position. I managed to close half of my position, my risk, whenever price action, once again, we come back towards these lows because we are under our entry, right? So our entry is somewhere over here. Our stop loss was right over here. We're under entry. So again, this is where you guys need to properly manage your own proper risk, right? This is where I'm going to send you guys, obviously in the course, I do have the risk management explaining to you guys what is the case whenever price action does this, right? I have to create a new one for the signal so you guys can obviously follow, so you guys can manage pretty much the risk the same exact way. But right over here, we have 0.5, price action comes back. This is where I did manage to cut 30% of my trade. So over here, I did close out like a $70 negative, leaving another $70 running, right? Somewhere between, it was something like that. And then price action started having a bullish reaction towards the upside. This is where I was like, okay, we're pretty much, I'm just going to monitor how price action does react over here for me to properly scale in another position. But once again, there was no good confirmation for me to scale in another position to go back again to, proper good entry. And then price action ended up taking out a stop loss, which again, these were wrong trades. So would I take this setup over here, right? The question is here, would I take this setup over and over again? Of course I would, right? This is pretty much what I look for every single time. But again, trading is a game of probability. Sometimes it's always going to be 50-50%. This is where you have to trust your system and play the game of risk management, right? So I did lose 2 trades today. I did win 1 trade today, but I did not end the day negative, right? I did end up closing out my day at $700, which is obviously insane, which is great. Yesterday, I did end up closing out the day at $1,900 in profit. So for the week, I'm still up, which is amazing, right? Now, these 2 losses over here obviously did not do anything to the account. I hope it did not do anything to your account as well if you guys did follow the rule properly, right? Now, this is pretty much just a market recap of every single of the trade that we took this morning. Another way, let me explain to you guys if we would have properly taken the sell position, right? Because again, I went over this and I'm like, oh look, I could have potentially entered the sell right over here. So check this out. What do we have here? We have all of these highs over here. We have, if we go into a higher time frame, right? This is something that I pointed out. I'm like, oh shit, if I would have, actually taken a look even closer, we could have probably taken this out right there. But check this out. Yesterday as well, we had a bearish reaction towards the downside. We were looking for a break and retest above these structures over here, but price action never gave us our entry. We started having a bearish reaction towards the downside. What do we have here? We left or we built an area of supply zones right over here. All of this is supply zone. Price action, this is where price action had the reaction from. This is why price action had the aggressive bearish movement this morning. We have a supply zone. Every time there is more supply, there's going to be, obviously price is going to decrease. So we came back into the supply zone. We did see an immediate rejection towards the zone. Price action has now broken under the 4,100. So if I would have taken the sell position with you guys this morning, this were confirmations. We took above all of these highs over here. We came back, retested all of these supply zones right over here. We have the reaction. We start seeing that price action has now broken under. If I would have waited for a proper, if I would have waited a little bit more longer, I'd say here my trading mistake here, I would say I should have really pointed out, obviously mark out the supply zone from a higher time frame, and then be a little bit more patient with my entries, right? I would consider that my entries today were aggressive with this trade over here, which is something that you have to note down, right? Again, this is why I tell you guys, it's very important for you guys to journal your trade. You need to understand the mistakes that you guys are doing, right? Remember, you guys want to take trading as an actual business, not just as a hobby. So you guys need to perform the right way. So this is very important, right? Now, going over this trade, we took above these highs. We had a supply zone over here. We had a bearish reaction. If I would have entered a sell position over here, it could have simply been this retest right over here. Notice this, we have the push, we have the manipulation, all of this, we have the break back under. We have these previous levels over here. We have support, 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 resistance, sell, come back, reform these other areas of resistance. Notice how price action has perfectly, obviously rejected and maintained itself under. If I would have taken the sell position here, all I could have waited for was for price action to break under these lows over here, which is exactly what price did, right? We could have entered our trade. Our stop loss could have been placed above these highs over here. And then again, we target all of these lows over here, which would have been a perfect, this trade over here probably would have given us almost a 1 of 4 risk to reward. And as you guys can see, price action perfectly smacked the take profit. This would have been the other scenario if I would have taken the sell position and just pretty much just point out the right exact levels, right? Again, these are minor mistakes. This is not something that is obviously going to kill us, something that's not going to ruin our account. It's going to make us quit trading. No, this is a simple mistake that we make every single day. But anyways, this is pretty much it, guys, for the market recap. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys found some value in this video. I will be going live again tomorrow morning, so make sure you guys keep that in mind. And I'll see you guys later on today. I might be trading the Asian session, late Asian session, pretty much, probably pre-London session. I'll obviously update you guys. But hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.